Good afternoon, Red Foxes. Campbell Woods here with a little update from the summertime. Was busy wrapping up some things today for the team for the end of the season and realized that I had not gotten out to everybody with our usual end of the season wrap up and a recap of the IRA regatta, which ended in epic fashion for Maris this year. So I wanted to, I think in our last video, we introduced the crew for the IRA. We talked a little bit about the athletes. I'm going to talk a little bit about the regatta itself, our experience down there, and then where the team kind of wrapped up for the season and where we're headed next. The men's four traveled down to the IRA, which was at the Cooper River this year, right in the Philly area or just outside of Philly in Cherry Hill. It was cool to be back there for myself and Coach Stratton. That's where we raced most of our IRAs when we were in college. The IRA was hosted there in the past for a very long time. And it was a little tight for space with all the teams in one parking lot. But aside of that, it's a great venue and one that I prefer over Lake Mercer. I hope we'll be back there again in the future. I know some of our competitor teams seem to like Lake Mercer a little more. But one of the things I like about Cooper River is I can follow the races on my bike a little bit. Unfortunately, I forgot my bike when we packed the trailer, so I wasn't able to follow along for the IRA like I was at Dadvale. We were entered in the varsity 4 category. There were a very wide variety of teams in there. 39 total entries. There were a number of teams like Washington, Cal, Penn, just looking at the results here, Syracuse, Princeton. Those were kind of the bigger teams who had qualified their full Division I eights, and this 4 represented their their varsity 4 their 4th varsity 8 athletes. So guys that came out of their 4V to make this 4 after their V8, 2V8, and 3V8. So there were a number of schools like that. There were a number of schools who, like Marist, had their top 4 athletes racing in this category in the 4. And there were also a number of D3 schools there who were in the same category with us. Some of them, it was their top 4 athletes, and some of them, it was their next fastest 4 after their varsity and second varsity 8s, because they were competing in the D3 8s championship. So 39 total entries, a very big mixture of schools. I won't read them all off, but a lot of them were the usual suspects, and then some of them were some smaller schools that we don't often see, like Catholic and Colby, RIT, and UMass Maritime had a boat there. So some kind of smaller programs like that. The event started with a time trial race in the morning on Friday. And I would say the conditions were, I think it was kind of overcast and like a little bit drizzly sort of during the morning. It would like wasn't a lot of rain, but just a little, like kind of misty maybe you might say, and pretty flat water. Marist placed in that event 11th. Out of the 39 crews, which was awesome. Our goal was to get into the top 18, which guaranteed that we would be in the A, B, C semifinal races in the afternoon with a shot at being in one of the top 3 finals. And so 11th was an awesome time. If you go back and look at the times, we posted a 6:11 time trial time. We were within a second of 5 other crews. We were within 2 seconds of 2 more, and we were within 3 seconds of the top 5. And so that was really cool, how close all the racing was with that top group, and really just kind of showed how tight that top end of the regatta was going to be. That result ended up placing Marist in the ABC semi. It was the second ABC semifinal, where the top 2 boats would progress to the grand final, and then the next 2 boats would progress to the second final, and then the bottom 2 boats would go to the third final. The crews that were in there were Cal, Brown, St. Joe's, San Diego, that's USD, Marist, and Stetson. And in looking at that event, basically, all of us being all of the teams who were in that final, kind of had the same outlook, which was that Cal was probably going to walk away with it, but that between the other 5 programs, based on the times we had seen in the morning, it was really anybody's game. And we felt like there was an opportunity to qualify for the second final, and there was even an opportunity to take a shot at qualifying for the top final, the A final. And so that was kind of the objective of the boat going into the afternoon. I think the athletes rode an exceptional first 2/3 to 3/4 of that race. And then basically in the last 500 meters, just ran out of steam. They had a really good, strong start, got off the line quickly, had their bow out, right, hanging with all the other programs in there. In the middle 1,000 meters, did some great work to pull up on some of the other boats. And with maybe 700 meters to go, Marist was in the second position, and looking like really long and relaxed and rowing well. The conditions in the afternoon were a little bit rougher, windier, but not bad. And honestly, I think the boat just ran out of steam. They had pushed really, really hard to put themselves in that position. And basically the crew from Brown started to walk up on them on their left side as they were facing down the course. And then San Diego in the lane on their right started to walk up. And I think that the boat panicked a little bit and fell apart. And so ended up Brown, Joe's, and San Diego were able to walk through us and came in second, third, fourth. And Marist just kind of faded and ended up placing 5th in the race. Pulled a time of 6:30. I think the athletes came off the water super frustrated with that result, or I should say, like, not happy, feeling like the result did not reflect the way they had rowed, and I kind of agreed that, I think that they rowed a better race than what the times show. I think we just rowed ourselves right off the rail. I think we quite literally ran out of gas, ran out of juice at the end of the race. Combination of that, and I think when the other boats started to pull up on us, that we panicked a little bit and kind of fell apart and didn't execute our sprint, our finish, the best way that we could. But that said, I was really pumped and proud of how they went out of the gate in this race. This could have been a race that we were in last place from end to end, which is basically like the way Stetson rode it. And I know the Stetson coach was he was pretty upset after the race as well for different reasons. I think that our athletes put themselves in a position to make the grand final in the early and middle parts of this piece. And, part of going to the IRA is learning and putting yourselves in those situations. And I think that that was a fantastic race to learn from. How to approach it. We talked a little bit about afterwards what maybe we could have done differently. I have a suspicion that in that kind of moment, about 1,200 in, when we had the upper hand by a seat or two, there could have been an opportunity to strike a little bit earlier and maybe put away some of these boats. And put ourselves in a position to be, to be the top in the top final, or one of the boats that made the second final. It's possible. I don't know that that would have worked out, but it's something that would have been worth trying. Perhaps the athletes at that point in the race, just like they're clinging on for bare life, or dear life, I guess is the expression. But there's, right in the middle of that third 500, I think we had a moment that we had the upper hand that maybe we could have capitalized on a little bit better. And we could have probably executed our sprint better in that race. But it was just very, very fun race to watch. It was really cool to see them put themselves in a position to qualify for the grand final in this event, and kind of go out with that intention. And that's really, at the end of the day, when we talk to our athletes and the effort level we want them to give, that's what we want to see, is a lot of fight. And I felt like the boat in that race set out with the intention to win. And that was a really cool thing to see them just kind of bury themselves in the early part of the race and make that attempt. So being in fifth, that placed us the Saturday in the third final, which is racing for places 13 to 18 in the regatta. We faced Stetson again, and then FIT and Stanford and Cornell and Oklahoma City. So kind of a cool mix of teams in there. Oklahoma City had been racing in that 4 all year. They raced that 4 at Dad Bale, and I think they either won or came in second at Dad Bale in that same lineup. And then Stanford and Cornell kind of representing like the bigger IRA 8s teams, and then Stetson and FIT representing it's kind of similar mid-major D1s like Marist. Very, very well executed final. The day we raced the final, the wind was significantly higher. Very, very strong tailwind coming out of the west, and flat water at the start, but then increasingly choppy and terrible at the tail end of the race. I think that the boat, that we ended up winning this race. We were in first place, 6:27, 2 seconds ahead of Stetson, and then FIT, and then Stanford and Cornell and Oklahoma City was in sixth place. I think what we did well in this race was we executed the same really tough start and middle that we had on the day before, and then in that third 500, we were really able to own the position that we had acquired to be ahead a little bit, and then walk away from the rest of the group. Um, the sprint was better; it was better executed, but I don't think that the sprint was what won us the race. We were already ahead by a good boat length coming into the final meters of the race. And if anything, I think Stetson may have walked up on us a little bit, but the Maris crew, that is, managed to kind of hang on to a great lead that they had built up over the course of the race. Just through being consistent every inch and meter of the way down the race course. So, also a really cool race, really fun to watch. There were off the start, and then several times in the first 1,000 meters, all 6 of these boats were just dead even across the line. Even once some of the crews had dropped Oklahoma City and Cornell in the earlier part of the race, it was still like Maris, Stetson, FIT, Stanford were 4 across, battling it out for most of the way down the race course in very close contention. So super fun to watch. The guys delivered. I think everyone came off the water feeling like we'd made up for the result we didn't like the previous day, and that the sprint had been better executed. We didn't panic, and we delivered under pressure. And I know that there was, there's some talk in the boat about, guys knew various members of the other crews and what their erg scores were and things like that. And so I think that, they were pretty excited as well about the demonstration of fitness that it indicated as well, that probably the men in this boat had significantly better fitness that had been developed over the course of the spring, than what we had seen on the erg necessarily. And so I think that's a really cool, exciting piece as well. Marist's time, 6:27, was actually good enough to also beat the next 2 boats up in the next final, which I don't think that's a great way to make comparisons, but I do think it's fun to look at, and always makes you feel good. We were in the third final, and we beat the next 2 times of the final that went off after us, which would have put us ahead of Dartmouth and Drexel and just behind San Diego. So, showed that we could have potentially been competitive up in that race as well. Other notes from the regatta. Just wanted to thank the variety of different families who came to support us, especially the student athletes' families. It's always a little bit of logistical nightmare getting everybody home from the IRA, just because the athletes are getting out of their dorms and leaving to go home for the summer, so they have all their stuff. Some of these athletes were from pretty far away. We had Tristan, who was there from Missouri, was one of our spare athletes. And then Evie, our coxswain, is from Pittsburgh, so that's a hike. And Reed, who's from Cleveland area, all their families were there, and I know that's a hike and a sacrifice for everyone. So thanks for being there to support and help us move the athletes around. There were a bunch of alumni there. In particular, I wanted to mention that Bob Sneeden stopped by, and we took an opportunity, a cool moment with him on the first day, to unveil the name on our 4, his name, on the 4 that we were racing at the IRA. Bob's been an excellent contributor to the program, and he'd been in the hospital with some health issues in the lead up to the race. We were really pumped that he was able to make it. And that was just a really cool moment, I think, for the athletes and for Bob. We'll put some video and some pictures up of that on our Instagram for everyone to see. But thanks to him for showing up, and there were some younger alumni there as well, and just lots of families and friends hanging around. That was cool to see. All right, what happens next? The team is wrapped up for the season. The final analysis from the coaches, I would say, is, last year, I think we finished the season with a sense of, well, that stank. Let's not do that again. And kind of knowing that there was significant change that needed to be made. And at the same time, we knew that this really big class of incoming freshmen were on their way, and that change was in the offing. And I think that the attitude now, the feeling is much more like we know what we need to do to get back to IRA qualification with the 8. And now we just have to go do it. And it's a feeling, I think in past years, it's kind of felt like that was like pie in the sky or something we looked back on fondly as something cool we did in the past, but it wasn't really possible. And I feel like this group has kind of woken up and said, okay, we can do this. This isn't that far away for us. This isn't an unreasonable ask for us to be able to go to this level. And so I think that's a really exciting feeling. It reminds me of the way we felt in 2017, closing out that season. The team had not qualified for the IRA, but we came away from the NIRC that year feeling like, okay, we know what we need to do and we can get there. And that sensation is what teed up the qualification that came the following year in 2018. Super big props to the athletes who came to the IRA with us and made it to that level of the team. It was a really cool lineup. It was cool having Thomas Graves in there in the 3 seat as our only senior and kind of representing a little bit of the past for the program. He had been in that same event in the varsity 4 in his freshman year, but because we were at the IRA with the full team that year, that boat was like our bottom 4 athletes at the regatta, and this year it was our top 4. And so it was really cool talking to him in the lead up to the event, like how he had kind of come full circle, the boat had come full circle, and everything was back on this new, more positive trajectory. And he had been a part of both lineups and everything in between. So just really cool to have him there, and then also really cool to have so much youth in there. The other 4 athletes in the boat, Evie and Charlie and Reed and Will Shockley, all 4 are freshmen. They're all going to be back here for another 3 years. Coach Stratton and I found ourselves talking about during the event, like that in the past, when we were at the IRA, that boat or most of that boat would have been in like a freshman 4 event. And they would have been an extremely competitive boat in that freshman 4 category if the IRA still operated the way that it used to. And so kind of cool, pondering what that looks like and just what it means for the development of the team as we move into the future here. Also, big props to Tristan Wistuba and Austin Thomas, who hung around to be our spare oarsman That's not an easy job. It's hard to stay motivated to stay fit and work out that whole time during camp. But it was a lot of fun having those guys on board with us. They were super helpful over the course of the week and the regatta while we were there. So thanks for their efforts as well. The team is off for the summer. There are lots of different athletes doing different things over the summer. There are some guys that are still actively rowing. There's a whole group that are doing a little internal workout challenge, which is going to be fun. There's some guys that have gotten involved in some U23 like high performance camps. I know, for example, Tristan and Reed from this group are going to be up training with the Orion group up in Saratoga Springs over the summer with Coach Cat. So that'll be an exciting opportunity for them. And I know that a number of the athletes, regardless of how they're working out, are working on some plans to do some racing at some of the various summer regattas and stay active. So I'm excited to see how all of that pans out. And, I would say that the team as a whole, there's a ton of excitement and energy about next year. We can't wait to get these guys back in August and get working on our next campaign. And I know that the athletes are going to be working really hard over the summer to take their game to the next level and capitalize on the hard work and opportunity that was created over the course of this season. That's all I've got for right now. Again, a special thanks to all our supporters. Huge special thanks to the families and alumni who have attended events, whether it be alumni racing or alumni day in the fall, or came to support us at races over the course of this season. Special shout out to Jim Cockcroft, who he went 7 for 7 this spring, and he was at every single one of our regular season events, including doing the Dadvale and the NIRC in the same weekend, Philly and Worcester. So huge props to Jim for being MVP alumni fan. Cool to have you on board. I wish we'd had you down at the IRA, but I know that was a busy weekend for you and a tough one to get to. We'll be looking forward to catching up with everybody in the fall, and I will be working on getting some introductions out for our incoming freshman class, which we're also excited about. It's a little bit smaller than last year's class, but a great group of guys, and they're going to be important contributors as we try to take this next jump in the 2026 campaign. Thanks again, and we will be talking to you in the weeks to come. Have a great summer. Stay cool out there.